Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. This is being brought to you as part of the Dynamic Talks, sponsored by Grid Dynamics. And today our topic is AI and cloud adoption in the insurance industry, breaking through the barriers. It's an exciting discussion that we're going to have today. And first, I'd like to welcome all of you to this discussion. We have a panel as well of very amazing people today. I'm super excited to hear from them. My name is June Bauer, and I'm going to be your host for this session. I'd like to invite you all to ask questions as they come up and come to mind, and you can just press on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And also, if you'd like to start a chat during this session, with each other, with us, please feel free to use the chat button and start your own discussion based on what you're hearing the panelists say. I think the more you're engaged and you're willing to join us in discussion, I think the more fun we'll all have, and probably the more we'll all learn. So please feel free to make yourself a part of this discussion. So to get started today, I want to do some introductions, and I'm going to invite each of our panelists to tell us a little bit about themselves. So Lori, let me kick it off to you.
Thank you, June. I appreciate the opportunity to join the conversation today. I lead a claim innovation and strategy at the Auto Club Group. We are a super regional. I work for the insurance company side of our business. Most people think of AAA as a motor club, but we actually do sell insurance in 14 states in our club. And I have the privilege of leading our innovation and strategy team. So as technology touches our team, as it touches the customer, my team will lead projects from ideation all the way through implementation and then post-adoption analytics. So really excited to join the conversation today.
Fantastic, Lori. And Lori, where are you geographically located?
I sit in Metro Detroit, but I have officially, after 15 years of working for AAA, moved to work from home. So technically I work from anywhere, but our headquarters is in Detroit, Dearborn.
Wow. Fantastic. And you are so lucky to have that flexibility. All right, let's move to another part of the world. And Isabella, welcome. And can you introduce yourself?
Hi, June. Hi, everyone. I'm very pleased to join this webinar today. So thank you for inviting me. I am Isabella. I have been in the insurance industry for over 12 years now. I had the opportunity to work for some big insurance corporations such as Zurich Insurance and Royal & Allies in Brazil. And after that, I moved to a more telco and technology side of things, but still in insurance. And then I passed through Telefônica in Brazil. And currently, 1 year ago, I moved to London and had the chance to work for Samsung. And now I'm back to Telefônica as an insurance operations manager at Telefônica Insurance, the captive insurance company of Telefônica.
Okay, that's an amazing background, Isabella, and you've been all over the world.
Yes.
It's very impressive, and it's very, very cool. So now you're sitting in London, I take it.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, all right. Well, sounds like we have people all over the world today, and let's turn to our final panelist, Dharm. And can you tell us about yourself?
Yes, thank you, June, and thank you everyone for attending, and I'm very happy to be here. My name is Dharm Kapadia. I am the head of financial services and insurance practice at Grid Dynamics. We're known for transformative, mission-critical cloud and solutions for retail, finance, and technology, as well as AI, machine learning, and other things that we do. My background is in financial services and insurance, specifically in reinsurance and life insurance and life settlements. But at Grid Dynamics, I'm working both on the financial services and insurance side, where I see a lot of similar things going on. And once again, I'm happy to be here.
Well, we are happy that you are here as well. And let me ask you now, so we've gotten where everybody else is. Let me ask you where you are.
So our headquarters is actually San Ramon, California. I am in New Jersey, and we have offices all over the world, and we have really embraced the remote and hybrid office solutions.
That's cool. I love hearing that. And I am located in Palo Alto, California. So I'm here on the West Coast holding down the fort. And I am so excited that you all have agreed to join and that you who are in our audience are here. My background is that I have been in technology for many, many years, and I was lucky enough to start my marketing career at Apple Computer in 1981, before there was a Macintosh, and got to be there for the launch of the Macintosh, and really learned a lot of marketing there, and went on to be the CMO and head of marketing for many other companies, including Adobe, WebEx, head of corporate communications for Cisco and others. So I've done marketing for many years, and now I am working for wonderful companies, helping them with their marketing and their projects. And I am so pleased to be working with Grid Dynamics today. So I know a lot of you in our audience wanted to hear about trends today. And so why don't we kick it off with that question? And Dharm, I'm going to pose this question to you. So how are the trends from business, industry, and technology accelerating change at insurance companies? What do you see going on?
Thank you, June. So it's very interesting when you talk about trends, and I think the poll that we took and the responses speak to some of the challenges. What we're seeing are different factors, both from internally in an organization and externally. Externally, what we're seeing is a changing demographic on who's the client is. We're seeing a lot more millennial and Gen Z, and they're used to interacting in a totally different manner, more remote. They're users of smart homes. They're also used to dealing on their smartphones with the other side. They're not normally the ones to pick up a phone or go to an agent. So that trend is then forcing insurance companies internally to look at new technologies to be able to manage, one, that omni-channel view, and number two, really understand from a 360 standpoint who that client is. So insurance companies are looking at, how do we, one, adopt this technology? How do we make sure that we have the platforms, the data, and the people inside the firms that can handle all of this? And I think that also spoke to some of the poll responses talking about sourcing the right skill set to be able to service that client.
So Dharm, it seems to me that one of the big trends is, I mean, I think what you said, it seems exactly right. And because you've got these younger people coming in, they have expectations that everything is going to be kind of self-serve and internet-based. And what are you seeing there in that world in terms of insurance and what's happening?
Absolutely. We can talk about renters insurance and Lemonade, or we can talk about handling auto insurance directly through a smart device, whether it's a smartphone, and not having to pick up a phone and deal with the other side. So what you're looking at are these different channels that insurance companies have had to adopt quickly, and also look at some competitors in that insurance tech space, the smaller, more nimble competitors who don't have legacy infrastructures, legacy applications, and can go directly to adopting sort of these newer technologies without having any kind of baggage. And plus, they're able to, because of the attractiveness, get the new talent that may not look at an older organization as being an attractive place to work. So it's also internally large insurance companies having to change their image and talk about their agility, their strategy, their technology, and what they offer some this new workforce that's out there.
What do you think, in terms of trends? So we see new competitors coming onto the scene. How is that affecting insurance offerings, and how is that affecting some of the incumbent players?
Well, we see a few things. One, the smaller, newer players similar to what happened with fintechs, are kind of the pilot fish on the shark. They're feeding and they're picking the low-hanging fruit. They're then building a client base and then be able to offer them newer services and newer offerings. And because it's a more frictionless experience, it seems more attractive to these new clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems to me the other thing I've been seeing in insurance is the strong interest in user experience. It used to be that everything was call your agent, right? And now user experience has really become a big trend, and I think insurance companies are investing quite a bit in it. I just wonder, do any of our panelists want to comment on that trend?
I can comment on the trend. We have implemented a couple of tools, even just recently. So post-COVID, we piloted through two insurtechs the ability to use the power of the smartphone so that we could move the claim along in a very seamless, frictionless way for our customers. And what we are seeing from a CSAT gain is on claims where, so our use case is you have an insurance claim, it's property and casualty, your home or your auto, and along the journey, very close to either first notice of loss or when your adjuster makes their first contact with you, we're asking you if you would consent to text related to your claim so we can establish that bridge. So on your terms, you have the capability of seamlessly communicating. And what we're seeing is less churn in the process, faster cycle times, much better CSAT. So we're looking at sentiment analysis, and on claims where we text with you, we're seeing literally anywhere on any given month, 700 to 1,000 basis points higher when we either text with you or we pay you digitally. So it's really that gain in customer ease. Our team members love the capability to respond in real time to customers and have that chain open. So I'm not managing voicemails and phone tag. So it's a win-win across the board.
Yeah, that is a great story, and that's so interesting. And I know, I don't know, maybe about 4 years ago or so, I sadly had a car accident where somebody hit me. It was their fault, but still, you have to go get your car fixed. And my insurance company had started something similar, not quite as elegant as what you had, but they kept me informed using technology on a regular basis, and it made such a difference in how I felt about their service. I felt like I was being taken care of. And I think that is the promise that insurance companies many times use to market to people, but it's very difficult to fulfill. And I think your story is so wonderful because it really tells the story of how you came through for people and actually changed the way they felt about you as a service provider. I think that's amazing. I love that. And Isabella, I don't know if you wanted to add anything. You don't need to, but
no, okay. I think that Larry and Darm covered very well this topic.
Okay. All right.
Thank
perfect.
you, Jen.
Okay. Well, let's move on. And I want to pedal to the metal or rubber to the road here. Let's get real. Enough with trends. Let's talk about what's really going on. So, Isabella, maybe I can get you engaged by talking about what are the blockers that traditional insurance companies or your company may face in that path to getting to modernization and ultimately to being a more agile organization. And how should these companies and your company, how do you think about breaking through these barriers?
Thank you, Jen. This is a great question. And I think when we talk about modernization, we talk about changes. And changes requires financial and people investment. And for me, this is the biggest challenge, because how to implement those changes, it needs a great planning, and it requires answering a lot of questions that it will depend for each company. So I think there's no right answer to those questions, but does this modernization is something, is that an overarching modernization, or is that an internal modernization for the internal process, or is that something that we want to implement to the customers? I think those are very, very important questions to answer. And another one is how to keep the BAU business and also implement those changes at the same time. Should we have a separate team only focus on changes, or should we share the resources? And when we come to the insurance world, there are many, well, the big insurance companies usually have different insurance segments. So they also need to check, do we want to implement a change or a modernization in a specific segment that requires more technology or more modernization, or do we want to implement something that touches as much as possible all the segments available? And I think one thing very important when it comes to modernization is to keep an eye on the insurtechs that are mentioned before, because they are more willing to take risks, they are more agile, and they are very close to the trends. So on the other hand, they have sometimes a lack of resources, and also they struggle with new customer acquisition because they don't have the same reputation as the big companies. So what I like to advise in this case, and what I experienced recently in my career, is to put those two together, the big corporations and the insurtechs. And a good example that I can bring is my experience at Samsung. We had, when I was there, we had a partnership with a very well-known insurance company, which is Allianz, since 2017. But Allianz was not giving the necessary focus on the mobile insurance, because this was a not insignificant, but not very significant business to them. So we decided to change, and we decided to change completely our insurance partner for the whole Europe, which means 16 countries. And we did a tender process, and we chose 3 different partners to administrate the Samsung mobile insurance, Samsung Care Plus. And then 2 of those companies are insurtechs called Boltec and Certify, and one is still a big corporation, Assurant. So I think this is a very good example where we put those 2 types of companies together to bring modernization.
That's really a very interesting move. Can you share what any of the results of that change were?
Yes, unfortunately or unfortunately, I left Samsung right after the change was implemented. I say fortunately because I still was able to participate on the whole process, but I couldn't see the real results, because it takes some time, right, to get used to new process, to these changes. But I'm sure that it will help Samsung to move forward with their growth strategy.
Yeah, well, that is a really interesting strategy, because, Samsung had the wherewithal to realize they didn't have all the answers, and that partnering with the right companies.
Exactly.
And did they choose 3 vendors to cover different solutions or cover different geographies?
Different regions. So one partner to the Nordics, one partner to East Europe, and the other one for South and Western Europe.
Wow, that is very interesting, and it sounds like a very strategically smart move to make. It'll be interesting to watch that going forward and see what happens.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to lead this project.
Yeah, wow, that's a big project. Well, thank you for sharing that. And let's turn to Lori now. So back to this question of what's standing in the way of insurance companies getting to this modernization, and maybe some thoughts on how to break through some of the barriers. I'd love to hear from you on that.
So I work for a company, a legacy company. So we have a lot of different systems and a lot of legacy technology. It can be a barrier, but there are a lot of tools. There's low code, no code tools. I have a lot of partners out there in the ecosystem that have devised a way that you can still get to modernization without having to do a complete rip and replace. We're also partnering with insurtechs and fintechs, and it's great to partner because we're doing co-design thinking and the agility of our partners to really understand friction points and then look to us for thought leadership of what makes sense in reimagining the experience, helps us deliver innovation across the ecosystem that really resonates, because in many instances, you don't just rip out the human talent in a process, you're augmenting traditional ways of working. So one of the things that I really love about working in the industry is the ability to partner to reimagine the experience. So we're having a lot of great success. We're actually bringing our end users into these design thinking sessions. This is pre-wireframe. We're doing a lot of A/B testing for our partners. And what that allows us to do is build a community of team members that are already really signed in and understand the what's in it for me, for the customer. And so when we roll it out to the larger population, we're seeing much better take rate. But some of the barriers are just taking that first step. We don't try to boil the ocean with our innovations. We test and learn, we iterate quickly. And I think getting to that next step involves the courage to really analyze what your root cause is, do the appropriate journey mapping, and then really start to chip away. We don't have every single process automated. Not every single process is reimagined, but getting on the road to innovation is one where you've got to take that step. And we're even partnering across the ecosystem. I'm part of a thought leadership team where we're analyzing blockchain. How can we share information even as competitors? Through different use cases, whether that be liability in an insurance accident, how to provide insurance cards, things that people need when you're out motoring, as an example, from a car insurance standpoint, which is part of the use cases that I oversee. So we're seeing that partnership is a win-win across the industry, whether it be competitors or startups and businesses that have that agility to allow you that seat at the table. Those are the kind of partners that are really helping us move forward.
That is great. Those were great stories. I love to hear that you're getting end users, customers involved early on, and then building that community. That is such a smart thing to do. You've got people already who are going to be out there on those social media talking about you and how great you are, and they're going to already be completely bought into the services that you're going to offer. So it's a beautiful thing. I love that. So both of you talked a lot about partnering, which I think is interesting. I'm curious, Lori, you have lots of insurance companies that have been doing it the same way for many, many years. And now there's this kind of big change happening and lots of partnering going on, even like you say, dabbling with competitors. What is going on in your company that people are now open to so much change at once?
Well, I think you have a very informed customer. You have a lot of different technology companies that view the insurance vertical as ripe for innovation. There's a lot of data that can inform our decision making. We have a very high ability to allow our customers to self-serve. There are a lot of cool tech. There's a lot of cool tech in the IoT space, like the smart home. So if we could text you that you had a water leak in your home, it might avoid a very expensive water damage claim to your property. If we could use the connected car today at AAA as an example, we allow our customers to download our use-based insurance application, even if they don't buy our UBI product. And what that allows you to do, in 10 years, I will have a young driver on the road. I might want to download that as a AAA member. So if you're part of our membership, we can send you information and score your journeys. Are you interacting with your cell phone? Are you hard braking? Are you speeding? And we're trying to make the community safer. And I think some of the trends I see is a move away from basically detect and repair to predict and prevent. So there are a lot of cool trends out there in the ecosystem, a lot of analytics that can help us deliver a more frictionless experience, help our human talent focus on the area of the process where they can really make a difference, take away a lot of that administrative and transactional. So we're seeing an immense focus on, it could be intelligent document process, RPA, computer vision, AI, ML. We are implementing so many of those projects, and we're using partnership because they have the agility in that space. We're great at adjudicating claims and understanding insurance, but they're really great at the tech. So we're seeing that great sweet spot in that intersection where we can work together. We recently implemented AI to help guide us to the right inspection path. So you mentioned you had a car accident. Depending on the hit, the geo, the year, make, and model of your car, we can potentially offer photo estimating. So you could step out in your driveway, take a few pictures. We could potentially prepare your estimate and digitally pay you in a day. With some of our claims, we can do that. So those are some of the things that we're getting to, and that takes the complexity out of our training. And we're just seeing real gains in our CSAT from an employee experience to a customer experience all throughout the value chain.
Yeah, that is cool. Those are great examples. And I think what still baffles me is how the insurance companies in general have gone from being very product centric to being very consumer centric. And I see that trend, and I'm excited about it as a consumer of insurance, and I'm just excited to see what the technology can do. So I think that's very cool. Well, let me, Dharm, you've been sitting there so nicely and listening so patiently. Let me ask you a question here. So we talked a little bit about technology, but how do you see, insurers leveraging AI to drive a better customer experience and improved ROI? What is AI and what can it really do?
So if we take a step back before we can get into what it can do, when you talk about the evolution of AI and machine learning since the 50s, it started out with basically statistical mathematical modeling. And it's gotten more sophisticated as we've grown not only the technology, but the compute power, the memory, and the data that's available to now almost mimic using deep neural networks the way the brain works. And then we've been training these neural networks with tabular data, unstructured data, and also image, voice, and all the other data that's available. So when you take a look at insurance companies, we know they have mounds of data. And Lori touched upon just some of the areas that they're looking at: the connected car, the smart home, where you have computing at the edge, where you can put hardware and software running, which can, in almost near real time, using models, detect something that may happen before it actually happens. Or if it does happen, have quicker notifications. So it could be you have a fire started and maybe you can alert the fire company even 5 minutes earlier, because that could be the difference between saving a life or not and having a property potentially burning down. But you're talking also about pushing AI to look at the data they have to refine their all their models that they've been used historically. So, for example, in life expectancy tables, can use many more dimensions to try and figure these things out. So, I think there is now an entire library of data and mathematical and AI models that can come here, and it's only going to grow as we add more items, not only in our house but on our phones. So, using pictures that we take, sound from the homes, where you can detect even the glass breaking and immediately alert, rather than showing up back at your house after the incident happened.
So AI is going to really enable that?
Yes, that and more. I'm, as Lori said, as you interact more with the customer and bring them into your journey, there'll be more ideas, because they're the ones that really know where their pain points are as a consumer. They're the ones that will help you smooth and streamline the process and saying, you know what, it would be really great if I could do this as a consumer. And if the insurance company will listen and incorporate that in, then the consumer will bring the ideas for you on where we can do that. Once we start to get even into driverless cars and other areas, there's even larger areas for AI and machine learning to come in.
Yeah, I totally see the value of it. I guess my question is, what is going to happen technically? Is the technology really there to be able to make these things a reality, or is that something that we're looking towards in the future?
No, the technology is here. I'll actually give you a use case. It happened to me and my wife. We had an insurance agent from our homeowners insurance come after using satellite pictures, which they put through an AI model. Our house was a group of homes where they said they have to check the roof. They came here with a drone, took pictures, run that through, and said that potentially our roof has to be either repaired or replaced. Now, there's no way that they would know that before unless somebody came and manually inspected it, but they'd have to even know that it was a case where an inspection was required. But here, the impetus was an AI model going through satellite images, probably from Google Maps or some of it, to be able to kind of flag those things that could be a problem. So these capabilities are here now. It's just a matter of adopting them and thinking about the process on how it starts and what it looks like to the end user.
Wow, that's a great example. That's it's amazing and it's kind of scary at the same time, but I love it. I love it. It's very cool. Well, Lori, let me turn to you because you're living the situation there in your job. So how have you viewed AI and what are you doing with it?
AI has been an accelerator for us. So to Darm's point, really the whole CX ecosystem is driving the need to innovate, being able to hyper personalize and delivering seamless experiences. So I don't know if you want to call it the Amazonification or just this whole ecosystem. People are much more likely to self-serve. So it's really driving us to reimagine the experience, because when you can't show up, and in my world, we're delivering on the promise. You buy insurance and you expect when you have an event that your company really be able to show up for you in an impactful way. And those are some of the things that are really driving our leaning into tech. And we're partnering with different tech companies that have the agility to really listen to the pain points and help us reimagine the experience. And it's been really, really successful. So the push to AI, I can give you a couple of examples. When we offer you a digital payment, not only do we text you, but we email you. So we want you to opt into that payment. And then if you don't accept your payment and it's about to expire, we SMS you again, because we want typically a happy claim is a paid claim. With our bidirectional texting, we can ingest videos, we can ingest paperwork. So we're trying to make it very easy for you to consume the insurance experience, and for us not to have to box you in and say, well, you have to send it this way, because little does the customer know we've got an API or a different process with a potential partner. We're trying to bring that all into an ecosystem that makes it easy. We're seeing partnerships. Our fintech is partnering with our bidirectional texting vendor. So we want them to send the claim payments through one chat. So today we can chat you from our digital bank, we can chat you from our estimatics process, and then we can chat you from our insurtech where we're doing this adjuster customer conversation. We're seeing some great partnership across the industry, and we're all trying to drive to removing the friction. And it's been really an amazing evolution. And I just see a lot of capabilities out there that will allow us to deliver more seamlessly at that moment of truth.
That is so interesting. And I love these stories. And it's interesting to hear how much both the technology and the partnerships and then this focus on the end customer are driving a whole new way of doing business. I just love it. And I love this idea of not trying to make people do it your way, but trying to enable them to do it any way that works for them. I think that is such a great philosophy and must create a fantastic user experience in the end. So really great to hear.
June, if I may, I have actually, there's another big driver which we didn't talk about, and that I will put this under the category of risk. When I look at the reinsurance side, which I have some experience, over the last 3 to 4 years, we've had a global pandemic. We have obviously other events happening around the globe, and we're looking at some extreme climate events. So using AI models to try and get a handle on this risk and to model out what's coming in the future, that's a wide open area. There's some that are already looking into that because obviously the reinsurance area has to anticipate some of that and see how they're going to handle it. But it all falls under risk. But I think we are seeing things outside just property and casualty. And we are seeing more global events that are causing potentially very large claims over a wide part of the world.
Yeah, that is such a good point, Dharma. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that's a little different from what we've been talking about. But yeah, I mean, AI can definitely help, because AI is what is going to ultimately help us be, better at predicting, essentially better at predicting the future, and it can be pretty right on target. I think we all know that from the early days of Amazon, and even today, where we get recommended products that are really pretty right on for what we're interested in. And they're looking at a lot of stuff and using a lot of AI to figure out what we're going to buy next. So that same technology now is being brought to this massive scale with risk. I love it. Well, Isabella, now you've been very, very good and patient. So I'm going to turn the next question over to you, but it's a biggie because it's the data question, which is an ugly one, because we know that any insurance company is going to have a ton of data, which can be an incredibly valuable asset, but is so difficult to get under control. It's unruly. It's all over the place. There's so much of it. It's coming in nonstop. There are so many audiences for the data, and the data in its raw form is not super useful. So I'm wondering, from your point of view, what have been your data challenges, and how have you overcome those challenges, or how are you overcoming those challenges? Hopefully, what's working for you?
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge here is the data source, because big insurance companies have multiple data sources, mainly if it comes to a company working in different segments, as I mentioned before. So how to unify all the sources, and how to reconciliate all this data. And then it brings to the, I think, next challenge, that is data. To process data costs money. So what's the right data to process, right? And to answer this question, as we have been talking a lot about customer experience, I would say focus on the customer, follow the customer journey very closely, identify the gaps, and cross with the data you have available. This is what I have been doing during my my experience in the insurance segment, and then invest in bringing this specific data that will help to improve the customer experience. And I think a good example where we could implement this kind of process is on the fraud prevention. So speaking of the mobile insurance industry, usually the insurance companies use very simple criteria, such as number of claims, to prevent fraud. So if you are a customer and if you have an insurance subscription and you raise 2 claims, you are out of the basis of the insurance base. And this is far away from what we could be doing with the customer behavior. So a good example is use and pay attention to the customer behavior, and use the multiple data you have in other segments to prevent fraud, and not only to not pay claims, but also to identify who are the right customer.
Yeah, that's really interesting and great. And what were the challenges in getting to that right data? Was that a hard exercise to figure out what were the right sources and then to bring them in and to make them a part of the application? How did that actually happen?
Yeah, I think I think this is a big challenge, and this is a complicated exercise. But even so, I think this is the better way to go. It's something difficult, but this is something that will bring satisfactory results.
Yeah, no, that's great, and it's great to hear that you are getting good results from that. Well, Dharm, let me turn to you on this data issue, because I know Grid Dynamics comes in and helps a lot of big insurers and other companies with their data challenges. So what's your take on this data problem, and what are some things maybe you could recommend to our audience that they could do to start to make their data more useful and more powerful to their business?
Sure. I think one of the important aspects when we talk about strategy for a company moving forward in the insurance realm is also their data strategy. And I think companies maybe don't look at that in the same way. Really, it's about data ownership and data governance. And I'll give you the perfect example. If you have a customer who has bought multiple products from your company, property and casualty, it could be life insurance, whatever. Who owns the data which identifies that individual? Normally, what happens is they fill out and they have all of their information in the property and casualty side. Then they fill out and they have all their information in the other products. What we see at Grid Dynamics, and that's why we talk about the customer 360, is first identify or know who your customer is and put in a data governance and data strategy in place to first be able to centralize that. Now, it's not easy, and that's kind of where we come in to help the client see that view. But the biggest challenge that we see, one, obviously, is the amount of data, but putting a governance and putting some controls around it, because then you can start making that data available for consumption throughout the organization, and they have one view of that data. So that if you are selling a product or you're making a prediction, it's all coming from that same base of data, and it's seamless throughout the organization.
So what are the benefits to an organization to do that?
Well, it's easier to manage once you start doing that. As I said, when you are looking at anything from reporting to regulatory aspects to any predictions you make, you're using the exact same data. So if you're trying to predict for a customer something on the property and casualty side, at the same time you're looking at life insurance or another product, your base data is the same, and the data that changes is for that particular domain or product, which that group would have control over. But if you're all starting at a fundamentally the same level, it makes it easier for the organization.
Yeah, and it probably, helps make sure the data is up to date and right, and can be, hygiene can be done on it so that it stays up to date and everybody has that same quality, which is really important when it comes to data management. I love that.
Right. So if you have a client that has homeowners and they sell their house and move, if they send that change of address, then if they have a auto insurance, it should automatically be picked up. They shouldn't have to then call their auto insurance. So these are the kinds of small things that can cause data to get misaligned, which has downstream impacts.
Yeah, no, great points. I know data could be a whole webinar unto itself. In fact, it could be probably a whole webinar series unto itself. But let's move on for now, because I have another question that I really want to ask Lori, which is around technology. So, Lori, from your perspective and what you've been doing, what are technologies that are being adopted, and what have been some of the challenges your organization has had or others you know of in using these technologies, really putting them to work?
So we're really seeing the application of artificial intelligence and intelligent automation across the ecosystem. So really, if you start from the beginning of the claim lifecycle, someone is reporting a claim. There's all kinds of analytics and data that we could use. And Isabella brought this up, fraud. or maybe it's sentiment analysis on hypercare for the adjuster or something that we're calling out throughout that journey. So what the trends that we're seeing is a lot of technology companies are approaching us from even analyzing, doing voice analytics. And whether it's the customer or our staff member, are there customer service recovery opportunities? Are there other use cases like potential fraud? I've had a lot of different companies approach me like, oh, we can do biometrics and tell you if someone is being potentially deceptive. So there's all of this really cool tech. But I think as an insurance leader, you need to be able to sift through the novel ideas and get to what is going to allow you to deliver with your brand. And it's different for every company, but we're seeing applications of blockchain. We're seeing computer vision being enabled. So I gave an example of if I filed a claim, say you were ending me June, I filed a claim with another insurer, using computer vision to actually look at the estimate that's being submitted and tell our team member whether or not we think it's an appropriate estimate, whether the repair and replace was the right decision, should it have been repaired versus replaced, negotiating car rental. These are things that we're seeing new applications of technology. We're using sentiment analysis on all of our chats. We just alpha testing. So we're sending literally badge notifications on an adjuster's chat queue. So what, June, if you chatted back, I'm really disgusted with X, or I'm very dissatisfied with the repair experience. Immediately, we're being drawn in using AI to those experiences so we can go make a recovery. So at scale, we are seeing AI be able to inform our decisions, using it to figure out which inspection method might be best, using computer vision to create models of your home if you have a fire. It's saving us on measuring. You can take pictures of your home. It's accelerating the claim process. And if we don't opt into that tech, our insureds likely will leave us for other companies that make the process more frictionless. So we're really being driven and challenged to be more agile. And we're partnering with companies and partners that allow us to deliver that experience. Even if we start out small, we can iterate and continue to enrich the experience. So that's really, I think, something that I've seen even in the past 3 years has exploded in this vertical.
Yeah, I mean, that's so exciting. It makes me want to go work in insurance right away. There's so much change happening and it's such cool stuff. And I really like all the technologies you mentioned. And I really appreciate that there's a real goal to make the user experience better. And one of the things I heard you say is that this claim, the idea of claims can be very adversarial between your customer and you, potentially. And by letting people show more of what's at risk or what's going on, like, for example, cameras that show what the inside of your house really looks like, you're putting yourselves as insurance companies on the same side as the customer, and the customer feels that. And that makes things work so much better. And ultimately, I think it's those who can deliver, those insurance companies who can deliver on technology and using AI effectively and really putting energy into understanding the user experience are going to be the ones who get the new customers and keep them over the long run. That's at least my hypothesis here. And I see you guys shaking your heads. Yes. So you're making me feel good because I'm not the expert you are, but I'm just listening and I'm pretty excited about this discussion. I hate to say this, but we are just about out of time. So we've got 2 minutes left. I'm going to let each of you just tell me in your own words as quickly as you can what most excites you about the future of insurance. And Darm, why don't you go ahead really quick?
Sure. For me, it's the hyper-personalization that we talked about and switching the actual model to, pay for what you eat. You're starting to see that with in the auto, where you don't have to, you can just say, I'm going to pay per mile I drive, but it's got to be using AI, machine learning, and that hyper-personalization where it's really tailored for you as an individual rather you as a group of people.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Isabella, anything you want to offer?
Yeah, I think what excites me most is the size of the opportunity. So there are so much to be done in the insurance industry. And I'm very passionate about process, about customer experience. And we have been talking about customer experience all the time, which means technologies, AI, cloud, and so many other technologies coming up have so much to bring to the insurance world. And being part of this process excites me a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad you sound excited, and I am very excited to see what you do next. And let's just wrap up here with Lori. What is on your mind?
I agree with the co-panelists in June with you. I think the intersection of people, process, data, and technology is really coming together to deliver truly frictionless experiences that are hyper-personalized. So all of the growth and innovation in this sector is really making insurance a place where we can attract the best talent and retain. And that's the most exciting. What the future holds and what I'm able to do as an innovator is super exciting.
Yeah, I love your point. That's such a great thing to close with. And yeah, because it's making me want to join. So what do you know? Well, I want to thank our panelists. You guys were awesome. It's great to have experts like you and to be able to hear this real life stories of what you're doing in your organizations. Really appreciate you joining today. And to our audience, you have been amazing. And we have really loved having you here to listen in and be a part of this. I love doing these webinars. Please join us. We'll be doing another one soon, and we hope you can all be a part of that one as well. And in the meantime, please go off and have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you back here for the next one. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.